I found myself early in my career falling into this, like, trying to prove myself, taking it too far and almost demanding respect, taking that authority that we've been tasked with responsibly and taking it too far. I still struggled, like, finding the balance of because I said so, right? And
Mhm.
really shifting that perspective and that narrative in my own head, I guess you could say, is saying, okay, I can't lead with, or I can't say because I said so. I need to, this initiative has to take place. It has to get done. How do I get this across? Be, because I said so is not going to work, and it's not appropriate as a leader. A good leader doesn't just lean on their position of authority to get this done.
Leading Ain't Easy, the show that cuts through the noise and gets real about leadership. I'm Ryan Calkins, Marine Corps veteran and founder of Reframe and Rise, and I'm here with my good friend and fellow leader, Erny Epley, founder of Bus Pro Network, as we unpack the highs, lows, and hard-earned lessons of what it actually takes to lead with character in today's world. It's not another highlight reel or fluffy leadership pep talk. We're talking about the stuff most people don't, the doubt, the pressure, the people problems, the pivots, and the personal growth that it demands. Because the truth is, leadership looks good on paper, but in real life, leading ain't easy. Welcome back to Leading Ain't Easy. Today we wanted to talk about being the youngest on the team and being a new leader that comes in, whether you get promoted early or you just a fast riser, whatever it is, but you find yourself in a position where you're leading people older than you.
Yes, and I love that this is the topic today. I think I've touched on this a bit in the past, but my first management gig, I real time experience on being the youngest in the room, and it's all things intimidating, scary, anxiety, through the roof, especially when you get people there who kind of remind you of that, and we can go into some of the stories, story time here in a bit. But Ryan, were you ever the youngest on the team that you happen to be leading,
Oh yeah.
or younger?
Well, so when I joined the Marine Corps, I was 17 and I went to boot
Oof.
camp, and everybody was 19 or older. So I mean, minimum 2-year gap, and there was one guy who was 27, so another guy that was 10 years older than me, and he had been married and divorced and like had a whole life, and I was just coming out of high school right into the Marine Corps.
And you were expected to be in a position of leadership at some point during that
Well,
time?
I mean, I guess it's not the best example because I wasn't the, actual leader. It was more everybody is expected to carry leadership qualities, and I was in a position to where I was like, these are all fucking men, I'm still a boy. But I don't, it was just one of those things that I can't even say it was humbling because it's not like I ever went into it thinking that I was better and got knocked down a peg. I went into it and I'm like, oh man, there's like everybody in here has already had some college or some life beyond high school, and I went right in. But
So you went straight from being either the bully or bullied, stuffed into trash cans at high school, to being amongst men.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yep.
yeah.
No, it was,
Uh,
well, I mean, but like for me, I was always a year, but like my birthday's in November and I moved up a grade. So I was always the youngest, like moving up through school. And so that part of it wasn't it wasn't different, but in school, everybody is like your age, except for my one buddy who was like driving freshman year. Cause I don't know how, but it was like 18 or something. But, there was, it was just growing up. I was always the youngest, and that didn't change until I got to college, after my military service and things like that. And then I started to become the older one. But just that experience of just I am so far out of my element, and so when you're a young leader and everybody's older than you, you're really suffering from like two kind of competing things, right? Where you're worried about age and how everybody is judging your authority without the age to validate it, right? But then you also have the lack of experience, and you're trying to show your experience without seniority. So you're battling the age piece and the experience piece, and sometimes you have one or the other, and sometimes it's both. Like you're the youngest and you're inexperienced, and that's where I felt completely out of my element when I first joined the military.
Yeah, I feel like I was life kind of prepared me for this. Looking back at it, um, on a personal level, I lost my father when I was 6 or 7 years old, and it's a core memory kind of seared into my brain that one of my uncles, at my dad's funeral, came up to me and whispered in my ear, because my immediate family is just my sister and my mom and my dad at the time. They were separated, but it was just when he passed, it was down to us three, right? And he came down and whispered in my ear. He's like, "No, you're the man of the house." And I'm 9 years old, and I don't even know. I have any idea what the hell this means, but I just always remembered him saying that to me and feeling at the time like, I'm what do you mean I'm the man of the house? And as I grew older and began to grow not only in size but in maturity, if young boy, if I'm ever mature even at 42, but it it started making more sense as I became older, became uh more used to my mom, even my mom coming to me with stuff, with things like, I don't know what to do here. And then just for the first time, as I was probably 16 or 17 when the first time she actually bounced something off of me asking
Mhm.
for, hey, as a family, what is our move here? And so even at a young age, being sort of life grooming me for that kind of role, to step up in situations that I was the youngest in the room, but I'm sitting here giving feedback on things that what we should do as a family at 16 or 17 years old. You fast forward 10 or 12 years, and I'm in my early 30s. I just left the California Highway Patrol as a school bus coordinator, and now I'm stepping into a transportation management role. And man, I was early 30s. I'm not sure what it was. So 2017, so 34. I was 34 years old when I became the leader of a department of approximately 12. And the next youngest person in the department was 40, in their early 40s. So I was the youngest by 10 years, And so there's people there who had, like in your situation, been married, divorced twice, had grandkids of almost my age, in their early 30s. And I'm supposed to lead these folks. I'm supposed to be the one to make the tough calls. I'm supposed to call them in and have tough conversations with them and tell them and hold them accountable for behavior, and the good thing is that most everybody, I say most everybody in that dozen or so people that I was of that team that I was part of, they were very, very gracious, very open and welcoming. They became sort of mentors in life. Right. I remember I still talk to one of the drivers there. Her name's Martha. She became like a real motherly figure. She was an older lady, still is an older lady. Still checks up on me. Hey Ernie, how you doing? How's my viejito? She calls me her little old man, and so she was just she was just very welcoming, very like, if I was going through a tough time on a personal level, she became someone who really cared for me and took up for me. And she's like, your mom's 3 hours away, you got one right here. So I was fortunate in that area. Not so fortunate in other areas, because there's a flip side to that coin, right? There was people there who I think one of the people there was like, "Boy, you were still shitting yellow when I got my bus license." I was like, "Probably was," So what the hell do you have to say to me? And there is part of me, I was like, "Yeah, he's right. What do I say to him in this situation?" So ran the gambit there, as becoming. So yeah, I definitely have experience uh and know the challenges and the absolute shitstorm that could go on in your head being the youngest one in charge of a department and responsible ultimately for their actions when they're out on the road and, interacting with the public, with school, schools, with kids, with parents. Um, it's a lot. I'm glad I took that path because it really was a sink or swim moment. Like I was just thrown right into the deep end in that moment or in that time of my life. And um I'll be lying if I didn't think about like, oh man, I even talked to my former sergeant at CHP saying like, hey, is there still a position there for me? Because I really thought about it and I was like, I don't know that this is it for me. I want to go back to here. I think I need a little bit more experience at that level, at my former position level, before I'm ready for this. And God bless him, Sergeant Cox. He's like, there is still a position here, but you need to see that through. And gave me some tough love in that. And when I asked, came crawling back, he's like, ultimately the decision's up to you, but if you want my unfiltered advice, you need to really see this through. Um, so yeah, that's been my experience is stepping in as the young guy on the team.
That's funny because when I went to waste management out of college, and I went from being one of the oldest because I got a late start to college because of the military. So in the military, I was the youngest, and then I got out and I went to school, and I was one of the oldest. Because I started at I think 24 or something, and got into student government where I knew nothing about it, but I had more life experience than everybody. I was able to share that wisdom as an elder, even though I was young. And then going from there right into waste management, where I was immediately the youngest person in the room again, and except it was different because I was going in, I was the youngest person, but now I had been in the military. I had been married, and I had experiences that like real life experiences. So I wasn't like green to life and green to an industry like I was in the military. But coming in here, it's like I had more to lean on, even though I was green in the field that I was going into. And I, well, I made a huge mistake, like in the first week
Let's
where
hear it.
I'm going through training, right? And this guy is leading the courses, and being the youngest one, I'm trying to, make others laugh and be that person, that just relate and get a foot in. And I'm critiquing the PowerPoints and calling out like the spelling errors and kind of joking. I'm like, oh man, this is a $1 billion company. We can't even get submitted to QC this. Come to find out, the guy leading the classes that I'm fucking making all these jokes with is the one that created all these PowerPoints, did everything. He's the one that misspelled it all. And I was like, oh my God, what an idiot. Like I'm already digging myself a hole. And uh I never learned.
Yeah. No, because I was about to say, Ryan, I've known you for over a decade now, and more times often than not, I've seen you forget the first rule of holes, which is when you're in one, stop digging.
Yeah, I can't. I just keep going like I'm gonna pop out in China.
Like, I'll save this. No, you fucking won't.
The other
No,
thing that always happens to me is I'll
yeah.
say something and then somebody's right behind me.
Every time I've seen this more often, it is uncanny how often this happens. Oh, sort of getting back on track. Another life experience I want to share here to let folks know who also might be stepping into leadership roles at a relatively young age. You're not alone. When I became a director, which is, I guess, senior-ish management, you have management underneath your name on the org chart. They're still all part of the team, but they are ultimately responsible to me. Um, I was 39 years old when that happened, and in the school business side of things, most directors, most folks who go from supervisor slash manager to director, usually are mid to late 40s, early 50s. It's usually, in the twilight of their career. They're a director for a decade at the most. And again, being someone who was sort of on the fast track, age wise to promote, I mean, I've gotten so many comments to know like how rare that is. And now that I'm here, I see that, yeah, it is pretty rare. And I don't say that to pat myself on the back, because I'm not the first person to be made director before they were 40. As a matter of fact, I know a few people now who have made those leaps, and we kind of talk on that, because I still lead folks in our that are part of my team that are way older than me, because not everybody promotes to leadership or whatever. So there's still, I would say I'm probably middle of the road as far as age wise in the department of, what do we got, like 65, 70 people in my department on our team. So there's still some of that there that I face today, folks who had their license since 1989. And and not only drivers, but like the instructor that is part of our team, she's been an instructor for 5 more years than me, and she's got a lot more technical experience than I do. So sometimes, even going into those meetings, I'll feel that feedback, not from her, she's great, but from other folks on the team, when I refer to her on things that, hey, I'm not sure what does this say here, because she's the subject matter expert on it. I feel that, like, oh, you're the director and you don't know that, bro? Do you know how much stuff that you have to know? Like, I this hard drive's full, man. And that's where I do lean on the subject matter experts. But I digress to going back to, if you're on the fast track, let's call it, you're always going to be the youngest,
Yeah.
not always, but you're always going to be on the younger side of that. So just a great tip is, you're not too young. You're just new to power, right? And power sometimes can be a trigger word, or be like some kind of misconstrued, that, power's not a bad thing. It's inherent to this position. You have the power over folks' livelihood a lot of times, in certain situations. Like, I don't want to just get too deep into the
Well,
weeds here, but
it's the power and
yeah,
authority, right?
yeah, exactly.
And like you said, it can be a bad thing when you abuse it.
Sure. Mhm.
But the whole thing it, it's being in a position to where you have power and authority, but when you're the youngest and you have your own self-doubt and just the awkwardness of telling somebody older than you, sometimes old enough to be your parent, about their job, or you're critiquing or providing advice, or anything, to where it feels like, who the hell am I to tell this person that's been doing the job, like you said, since I was shitting yellow, whatever. That's kind of gross, but I got 2 kids, so used to it. But, it's just that pressure of always feeling like, I'm in this position, I have to be this person, get over my own self-consciousness and everything else that is holding me back. And well, I guess when I shared the PowerPoint critique, it was kind of a lead into to other mistakes that I made as the youngest. And you come out of school, or you learn, you read a book and you find this theory, and it's like, or whatever it is, or some type of process. You're like, oh, I'm gonna bring this revolutionary thing to this antiquated department, and
Yeah.
you come in, and one of the biggest mistakes that you can make as a new leader, especially with older people, is coming in and trying to change their way of being in the workplace.
Ugh.
Now, when you come in and you're like, "Oh, well, I've got this thing. I'm going to change everything. Everybody's going to be more productive. They're going to be this. They're going to be that." And a lot of times, maybe they do want to be more productive, but maybe they don't. You have like people that are nearing retirement that are like, "Go away, child," and
I got a story about that. Sorry to interrupt, but I
I
got a
can't wait
story
to hear
about
it.
that.
But
We
no,
Go ahead, go ahead.
no,
Sorry, I'll let you
no.
finish.
I was just finishing up with the you don't want to come in and try to change everything all at once. The thing that I learned very early on is, you may have ideas, and the best way to bring in new ideas is by showing people through action. And what I mean by that is, say, you got John Flanagan, who's used to doing this process, and you don't want to come in and say, "Oh, John, I want you to do it this way from now on." You can come in and take what he's doing, or something he's already done, and run it through a new process and show how things are different, and kind of introduce it in ways to where you're getting his opinion. What if we did it this way? What if we did it that way? And you're a lot more receptive when people, you're not trying to pull the carpet out from under them and say this is the way that we're going to do things from now on. It's really trying to start to shift in a different direction, but uh I don't want to say enabling, embracing what it has been done historically, getting their opinions on what has worked, what hasn't worked, and then starting to introduce things
Yeah.
together as a team.
What you're referring to is something I call let's ease into this. Let's not put um integration isn't the right word. Transition. Let's not transition to this in a hasty manner. And I learned this lesson the hard way with technology when I first got to my current job over here at the district. Um, they were on what I interpreted as an antiquated paper and pencil system of documenting their pre-trip inspections for the vehicles. They were pen and paper on the time cards, to which we're still kind of on that. That's more of a district wide thing versus a department thing. But the pre-trips inspections that have to be filled out and completed and kept on file for what is it, 3 to 5 years? Again, my knowledge is really super harsh there, or super on point, but we have to keep it for a certain amount of years. I was aware of this new technology to digitize that, right? As is the case with most office environments, or most environments where processes have to be documented and kept on file. A lot of things, this started what, in the 2014, 2015, maybe even before that, moving to a digital platform with the emergence of things like smartphones and iPads and tablets and things of that nature. So I was aware of a tablet solution, a tablet based solution for this with drivers. So in the commercial industry as a whole, not just school bus drivers. So in my head, being, somewhat on the younger side of things, like, wouldn't it be so much better if all of our drivers had tablets that, instead of checking off with the pencil and paper, they're tapping it and they're with their finger, right, and they're signing their John Henry at the bottom that they've completed this pre-trip, and then they don't even have to turn it in. They just hit submit on a little button, and it goes up to the cloud, and that's where we keep it stored for the 3 to 5 years, whatever time period we have to keep that. And then also with this neat technology, if there's anything wrong with the bus, they could take a picture of it and say, hey, I have a flat tire, and then fill out a work order. Yes, there's no longer the need to traffic this paper over to the shop. A work order is generated via email. Hey, John Flanagan, the mechanic, knows that Nikhil, the bus driver, has a flat tire. He can go out there and fix that flat tire, and there's no papers involved, right? So, said all that to say, hey, this is super cool, isn't it? Here, what's another person? Here, Travis. Here's the tablet. Go out there and everything you've done on paper for 35 years can now be done on this tablet. Travis is 65, 70 years old. He has never owned a tablet, doesn't understand the concept of using login credentials to, and I hit a wall, man, because Travis in this example was like, oh, I don't want to do this. And I'm like, no, it's easy. Let me show you. And within 2 days, slammed that tablet back on my desk and said, you could have this. I'm retiring. I'm like, whoa.
Oh, wow.
It's just, I, to some extent, we all know that the industry moves, and that's going to be me one day. One day, this industry is going to bypass me. I'm going to hit, we all have expiration dates, man. That's how humanity works. But like, at some extent, I knew that was that, but I think I know, because I've since introduced newer technology. By the way, Travis didn't retire. He was just frustrated, and we talked about it and had a good moment. We've moved on. But the lesson learned there is, when you've come in, let's ease into these things. Let's talk about them. Get, like you said in your example earlier, getting feedback from the team, and starting that transition, understanding that transition period on some things, not all things, has to be overnight. It can take time to ease into it, and at a way that works for everyone. The Travis is included.
So two things. One, did you mean John Hancock? I've never heard anybody say John Henry for a signature.
Did I say John Henry?
I'm pretty
I
sure
s
you did. I'll have to go back and listen, but
I certainly meant John Hancock, not
I
John
mean,
Hen
John
is
Henry is
John
also a historical figure, but, anyway.
John Henry? Are
The
you sure? Hold on,
the
was
other thing is when you're talking about the monitors, I had something very similar at Waste Management where I was responsible for so I not only did I have my group of drivers that I was managing as a route manager, operations manager, I also had a I was part of a team that was kind of like an internal, I don't wanna say task force, but we were part of a group of a small group of coaches that were responsible for the rollout of onboard computers into garbage trucks for all of Northern California and Nevada. So I was going from site to site, teaching all of, basically every driver was older than me. So going in and like you said, there's resistance to change, guys that have had pen and paper for years. And we have to hear, oh, well, my route list blew out the side of the door. I don't know who I'm supposed to collect today. So all these things, whatever. But
Yeah.
going through there was a lot of hesitancy. And the funny thing was like the older guys were the ones that put up the biggest stink, but they were also the ones that came back. It's like, "Oh, this thing is amazing, da, da, da," like,
Yes.
wants to get a hold of it. Like, the younger
Yep.
guys typically picked it up pretty quickly, and then you had the in-between group to where some of them struggled, some of them didn't. But what I wanted to say is part of, one of the ways I was able to help win my own team over is I had one of the guys come in and, like, your guy that slammed the stuff down, but he yelled at me, and he was like, "When I'm distracted, I'm focused on this tablet, and I run over somebody. Are you gonna tell my wife and kids I'm in jail because blah, blah, blah?" And I'm like, "Dude," I'm like, "Look, here, give me your tablet. I will put everything in order for you. I'll stay late today. I'll fix it. I'll give it back to you. All you have to do is worry about closing it out, making sure stuff is there, not having to put everything in order." Because it's one thing that we asked them to do also because I was the person that learned Map Info Pro so I could build all of the
Mhm.
routes for all of Alameda County and the surrounding cities that we collected. And each map we asked them to basically draw their route um through the route, and then we have to go in and put everything in sequential order. So what I asked him to do, I said, "Look, I will print you a giant map. All I need you to do is draw the route that you take. I will go in and manually put them in. I'll stay and do that for you." And I mean, I spent a week putting everything in, fixing his stuff up, gave it back to him. He came back to me a week later and was like, "Dude, thank you so much. Like, I appreciate it. Like, everything is great. It's working well." We had other technical issues. That's a different story. But
You're right.
being able to put yourself out there and go above and beyond to show them that you're there for them. And I don't mean that, and that sounds kind of caretaky, but you know what I mean. It's just
Oh, no, it's support, man. You're supporting your
it's
folks. Yeah.
doing things that you don't have to do to show them
Yes.
that you're there and willing to go the extra mile.
So before we transition to the next point, back to John Henry. Is he the one that said, "Give me liberty or give me death"? Who
I don't
was that?
remember.
Is John Henry even real? Did
Yeah,
we just make something up? Yeah.
no, John Henry was different than a historical figure.
All right, I'm gonna Google it when we're done. Okay, next. Uh, I know I certainly felt this when I first came on, promoted at a young age. The feeling of the need to prove yourself. I don't know that that's I'm since I've seen that in the show notes and since we've been not on air, but since we've been recording, I've kind of been wafting back and forth. Is that a bad thing to necessarily feel as a young leader, the need to prove yourself? Because I feel like I want being competitive. I want to be better than I was yesterday. I want to prove that I can do this and that I've earned this title and I've earned this position. But at the same time, like if you try too hard, like I think that could be work to your detriment as well, right?
Well, it can. Yeah, I think that's the thing is when you're trying to prove yourself, you should be proving it to yourself internally and not trying to prove yourself to others like you're equitable, because that's when you start to get into danger where you come in too heavy or whatever it is where you're like I said with the example of coming in and trying to change everything. It's like you're trying to prove
Uh,
yourself. Oh, I will come in and make a
yeah.
difference, and I will do this. I will show them that I belong, and that I'm wise above my years and all that stuff. And that's where you start to get into trouble. I think if you have the mindset of like you said, you want to be better every single day. I wouldn't say
Uh-huh.
that that's necessarily the same as trying to prove yourself because
Gotcha.
you
Yeah.
you're internally trying to improve, but I feel like proving yourself is more detrimental because you're just
You're trying too hard or
yeah, you're basically
mm,
trying too hard to show that you belong to the point to where it's like, okay, he's either doing too much or too much yapping and not enough, backing it up or whatever it
yeah.
is. And then that's when your credibility starts to get questioned.
Yeah, I think I know what you're onto, and I wanna build on that a little bit because I've 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 found myself early in my career falling into this, like, trying to prove myself, taking it too far and, like, you will like, almost demanding respect, demanding, that the taking that authority that we've been, tasked with responsibly and taking it too far. Um Early in my again, I still struggled, like, finding the balance of because I said so, right? And
Mhm.
really shifting that perspective and that narrative in my own sort of cone of influence in my own head, I guess you could say, is saying, "Okay, I can't lead with or I can't say because I said so. I need to this initiative has to take place. It has to get done. How do I get this across because I said so is not gonna work, and it's not appropriate as a leader. A good leader doesn't just doesn't just lean on their position of authority to get this done. So coming up with a way to communicate that, becoming a better communicator in our initiatives to where it's not just, "Hey, I said this, I'm director, do it. Fuck off. I'm gonna go do what I'm gonna do." That doesn't work. That's it's never gonna work. And so, going back to proving yourself, you can prove yourself with the right avenues and with the right direction in what you're doing and the work you're in charge of and the team that you're responsible for. That makes sense, or does it sound like a bunch of
No,
word
yeah,
salad?
yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's proving yourself through action, right?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, great way to sum it up.
So it's more not trying to overcome your self doubt by posturing. It's
Yes.
actual
Yes.
implementation of working with others. And I mean, I guess I don't even know if it's proving yourself at that point. It's more
Mm, yeah.
I guess kind of integrating yourself into everything, but you're slowly gaining buy-in by your actions and what you're doing and staying consistent, and you're gaining respect is really what it is because they're respecting you as a leader or even a I would say companion, a colleague,
Yeah. Teammate.
and
Yeah.
yeah, you may outrank them, but it's all in how you present yourself. I mean, if you come in and you try to establish yourself as, "Oh, I'm in charge of you. You're down here. I don't care if you're old enough to be my dad." It's I think it's all in your behavior and your approach to leadership speaks volumes on what you can do. And I feel like it's easier to get away with that type of approach when you're older because you
Mm,
have younger people that are
yeah.
looking up. It's like, okay, this person has been here. Maybe this is the way of the world. But when you're older and you have a younger person coming in and saying, "This is my department now. This is what I'm going to do," it's like, "Pfft, get out of here, young buck."
You're gonna get a lot of middle fingers pointed back at
Oh
you,
yeah.
figuratively and literally.
So did you ever
So
doubt yourself, like
mhm.
as a younger leader, when even though you knew you were capable?
Did I ever doubt myself?
I know it touches
Yes.
a little bit on imposter syndrome, but I mean, I
No,
guess it kind
a
of
little
is.
bit
It's all
there,
it
but
takes.
of c it's especially when your confidence takes a hit, that for me was I've I don't know if it's something built into my personality or my makeup as an individual, but I am confident as a person, borderline cocky sometimes, that's not easy to admit. I've I'm trying to put this into words correctly and frame it. Just say it. When I was younger person, even a young manager, I was cocky. I was an asshole. I look back at that, some of the things I did and some of the things I said, and I don't have an immense amount of pride in how I handled certain situations. I learned the hard way, without getting into specifics, that you're going to catch a lot more flies with honey than you will with vinegar, and the humble approach is the better approach. You don't know everything, and I had people tell me that, but my dumbass didn't listen until it hit hard,
Yeah.
until the lesson literally smacked me in the forehead, not literally, but hit me in the forehead. And I'm like, oh my God, I should have been listening this whole time, but I was blinded by arrogance. I was blinded by ego. And now I'm on the verge of losing everything. And I don't want to get into the specifics, but because it's deeply personal. But in that, during that time, I knew I had to shift. I had to pivot. I can't do this anymore. Yes, it's good to be confident, but leave it there. Leave the cocky shit at home. Like, be confident in your abilities that got you here, but don't lean on that and expect everybody else to have that same belief in you as a leader. You have to earn that. They don't just owe you that because you have a title of manager. You have
Yeah.
to earn that, right?
Perfect.
And so it was kind of that rebuilding of myself, and I've done my best since then to really lead with the humbleness. Lead with, "Hey man, I don't know everything. That's why this is a team. That's why I need you, John. That's why I need you, Travis. That's why I need you, Nikhil. I need you guys to give me what you guys your expertise right in this situation. Let's form a plan together, little you, little me, little everything, and let's move on that way." Um and following what you had said earlier during your approach when we were talking about proving yourself, man, nothing has restored my confidence more than that, more than following that. Of course, there's always going to be outliers and things that are going to sort of affect that. But something I've learned, I mean, shoot, even in the past 5-7 years, is keep your intentions pure, keep the end goal of your product, whatever your product is of your department, keep that in focus and keep your intentions pure. And man, it really does tend to work out if that's the main focus, and build people around you that are also gonna latch on to that same vision, to know that, hey, this is bigger than Ernie Epley. Fuck that dude. This is a whole endeavor that's outside of any one of us, and we can't do this. Any one well, every one of us on our own can't do this. We have to come together as a team to build this. And
Well, that's
and
true
you,
for
yeah,
any leader where you're
oh, for sure.
bringing your team in and getting buy-in, but how do you do that when you're the youngest and you're, you're coming in and you're trying not to I don't want to assume, but I'm guessing a lot of the issue that you had was when your confidence was getting shaken, you were getting defensive, and then it was
Yeah,
being more problematic because it was becoming like kind of adversarial. But how do you as a young leader or not even a young leader, as a leader that is younger than the your newfound subordinates, how do you work on that buy-in and getting that support to start to build that direction?
keeping the big one for me is keeping the main goal, the main focus. Not pivoting the whole team, saying, okay, listen, this is where what was happening before, and I'm responsible. This is my part I'm responsible for. Take ownership of it. Take accountability. The example I gave earlier, when I fell on my face as a young manager, what got me the most buy-in from staff was standing in front of them and full on admitting, full stop, this is on me. This is where I screwed up. This is where I went wrong. Now I'm telling you, and I'm going to show you. Don't just tell them, right? Let them know that your intent is to show them by action, because anybody could say whatever the hell they want. It's your actions that are ultimately speak louder than anything you can, put together in a flowery speech. Let them know that there's a pivot taking place within you, and it starts with you, right? Then begin to say, we're keeping the main goal, the main focus, and here's what I need from everybody in this room. Start crowdsourcing things. How do we get better? How do we move away from this? And really embracing the team aspect, builds buy-in because then they're no longer seeing a young Ernie Epley up there saying, "No, this is the way it's going to be. God damn it, and that's the only way because I lead in this." No, that they've seen that perspective, and it's not going to happen after that first meeting. It's going to take, man, for me, it took about 6 or 8 months before I really started seeing that turnaround. And there were times where I was fatigued. I was like, man, I'm never going to get them. Like, this first impression that they got of me is the only impression they're ever going to have of me. But keep on keeping on, man. Keep the main focus, the main goal, the main focus. Keep repeating. You're going to have to repeat yourself a bunch and repeat your action. Keep doing that. And eventually, for me anyway, it certainly did begin to turn around. And I had comments from people saying, you know what? I was wrong about you. And I had to correct them, like, no, you're exactly right. I was a dickhead. You know what I mean? Like, but we've changed. We're all growing. We're all evolving, and that's how I work myself out of that.
And now you're a dickhead with a goatee.
We've cursed a lot on this
Oh,
episode. I'm going to try and scale that
John
back. Go
Henry
ahead.
was a folk hero like Paul Bunyan, right? I don't know. Well, because I was thinking about Superman, the Man of Steel, so they had the variants in they had Superboy and the Man of
Oh,
Steel and all these that came out in the 90s. And I'm pretty sure his name was John Henry, but I think it was a callback to a folk hero, John Henry, that was a freedman steel worker, or I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter. Anyway, sorry. Um, but yeah, no, you're right. I think when you're coming in as the youngest leader, as I kind of alluded to before, I think listening builds trust faster than coming in and asserting your own authority, and not posturing like we mentioned. Don't come in and try to be somebody that you're not. Show that you're competent through your preparation and your work and your actions. And like Ernie said, he you used to rely on the tape in football, and what you put on tape is everything, and it's practice, practice, practice. You always want to be prepared and show your competence, but don't come in and oversell it. And lastly, for me at least, just being humble. Like you said, you get up there and you can admit, like, I don't know everything. You don't have to come in and say, "Oh, I'm 21. I got out of school. I learned everything that there is to know," with no applied experience and practical application of anything. Um,
what you just said. Sorry, I want to just interrupt a bit. Like, that is, I don't want to just say it and gloss over it. That is one of the hardest freaking things you're going to do in this job. If you Google what is the hardest thing for people to say, up at the top is "I was wrong." Like, because it hits your ego, man. It hits who you are as a person, like what you believe, everything. And I'm not saying it's easy. It's not fun, man. You're gonna have egg on your face for a while. Uh, but let that motivate you. Like, well, I'm not gonna do this again because this feeling sucks. So yeah, just wanted to throw that in there. It's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be tough, and that's why we have this podcast. Leading
is
ain't
there any
easy. It's one of
other
the things you got to
piece of
know.
advice that you have?
Um, well, other than walking humbly and really leaning on the main focus of what you're trying to do and taking your own idea out of it or taking yourself out of it. Yeah, at some point you're gonna have to make this Ernie or you're gonna have to make this Ryan's thing. But you cannot be married. You can't be married to the point of it that you're gonna be blinded by that. Be your own harshest critic to your ideas. That's the only way that they're refined and made strong. So I guess that would be my bit of advice. While you were talking, making your previous point, I googled John Henry, and you're correct. It is in folklore,
Yes.
and I do see a super like cartoon there. But the man give me liberty, give me death guy, that was Patrick Henry.
Ah,
So yeah, they just wanted to clear that up because it was bugging me this entire episode. I was like, man, what am I trying to say here? Sorry, Ryan. Can we close off of that? I mean, can we wrap up after all
Yeah.
that?
Just a couple of other points that I wanted to cover
Yeah, yeah.
were, like we mentioned before, you don't need to know everything, but
Mm.
you do need to be consistent in your messaging and your application and the way that you present yourself and you pull others in to help. Because no matter how old you are, it's not the age that gets you credibility. I know plenty of people that are far older than me, but it's like, oh, this dude's been here 3 or 30 years, we just leave him in his corner. But it's not age, it's behavior. It's the way that you carry yourself and how you treat others and how you show up to work and the humility that you bring. That is all key to succeeding as a leader that is younger than the people that you're leading, because they see how you are, how you operate, the kind of person that you are, how you treat everybody, and that all ties in together with the level of competence that you have in the field that you're in. Because you could be a fully competent and a great technical person and be an absolute piece of shit in terms of manager. And if you're younger than them, not only are you not going to be respected, there's just another reason to give them to not buy into what you're providing.
My last bit of advice before we wrap up would be kind of what you're explaining right now can be summed up in one word: authenticity.
Yeah.
Be authentic. Now, a little bit caveat to that is once you've evolved to the humble leader, to the person who really is doing their best to keep their intentions pure and keeping their eyes on the prize, do so with authenticity. Don't be afraid to have fun here and there, to let your personality shine through in that moment, or in those moments and during the course of your leading career. Um, and when I say authentic, that means good and bad, you know, holding the self accountability, not being afraid to take a compliment, not being afraid to say, "Hey, what we did here worked." And you're not patting yourself on the back. You're giving collective as a team like, "Hey, this is working. Let's keep this up." And I've achieved more buy-in from just being me, being Ernie Epley than any bit of knowledge I have, any bit of technical expertise I have. That leading with authenticity, with intent, pure intentions is paramount to success. You have to do that.
So you've been more successful as Ernie Epley than Ernest P. Epley.
Well, my middle name's Marvin, but so be. Was that a pop culture reference that went over my head?
What? No.
Oh, okay, sorry. Because
I didn't know
sometimes
your
you
middle
make
name,
those.
so I made up an initial.
Oh, you're close. You're 2 letters off, right? I don't know. Okay, sorry.
No, you're good. Until,
So
oh, go ahead. Did you have
no, no,
something
no.
before?
I just wanted to invite feedback from listeners. Anybody, if you're the youngest leader in the room, um, if you find yourself in situations that if this sounds relatable to you and you're going through it, uh, leave us a comment, hit us up. If anything that we didn't cover, feel free to let us know, and we could definitely get into it in the comments.
And subscribe and share.
Please, thank
Let
you.
others know we exist. All right. We'll see you next week. Leading ain't easy.
But you don't have to do it alone.
Thanks for tuning in to Leading Ain't Easy. If something in today's episode resonated, please do us a favor and share it with someone else who leads or aspires to lead. Because honestly, none of us have this figured out, but we can all get better together. If you're a leader or professional feeling quietly stuck in your career, visit reframerise.com. It's a career and leadership coaching firm where I work with veterans and other high achievers to realign their work and lead with purpose. Again, that's reframerise.com. And if you're looking for leadership tools, training, or support for your transportation department, check out Bus Pro Network, where Ernie helps school transportation leaders across California build safer, stronger teams. Please subscribe wherever you listen, leave a review, and let us know what topics you'd like us to tackle in the future. And remember, leading ain't easy, but you don't have to do it alone.